the mindset shift we want to make is to move from being income focused to being asset focused. So income's important, but when the mindset is around building assets, building and buying assets, and having this thing called a portfolio, that's what wealth is. And wealth is what balances out, like, is money from assets versus our tenacity and our hard work.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Triangle Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Fagioli, and today's guest is going to help us kick off 2024. She has, over her career, been a thought leader in the real estate space at the highest level, and also just came off a big business planning session that was incredible, where she shared some really awesome insights for how to kick off your new year. And so she was kind enough to jump on and share that with us. So please help me welcome Miss Krisstina Wise.
I'm so happy to be here and have this conversation, Matt. Again, like we've talked about, it just reminds us of some of the good old days.
Yeah, that's right. We've been friends a long, long time, and you have been, very well known nationally in the real estate space for all of that time. And you're a voice that I've certainly always leaned on for insight. And so I'm really excited to hear, sort of real estate specific, what your thoughts are about, kind of where we are and what's next, and what agents and brokers could be thinking about as we go into 2024 here. And then in general, I know your business, transcends real estate, goes into lots of other channels. And so just generally, any business person, what that might be hearing this, what should they be thinking about for 2024? So before we get to all of that, could you kind of hit just a little highlight reel, of your background for our members here at Triangle?
Well, real estate has been my entire life. So that's where it starts. And started in real estate sales and did very well in real estate sales, was always a top performer when I was in the sales side of real estate. Then I moved to real estate brokerage and built a really nice real estate brokerage in Austin, Texas called Good Life, and went on to build a real estate online training company called The Paperless Agent, which did very well to really help agents at the time bridge the gap between tech and marketing, and had fun there. Then moved to, well, I guess I was this all along, but then really got serious about real estate investing and became a real estate investor. And then just worked to lead and teach what I was doing. And since then, now I really teach business strategy, and financial freedom and wealth creation, which is something that I was always working on personally during all those real estate years, 2 decades of really being focused on real estate. I was working on personal wealth creation and asset creation, including business. So that's what I do today is I help really individual performers and top performers learn to move themselves from an individual performer to a business and really work to build wealth and financial freedom at the same time. There you go.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, and of course, that real estate agents and brokers, we're notoriously good at making money and not necessarily keeping it. And you get on the hamster wheel of the next deal, and even if you made $1 million this year, it might have gone right back out the door. And so I know you've got lots to share with us on all that.
Yeah, and that's basically it, is to summarize everything I said and really combine it with what you said. That's what I do is I teach top performers, individual performers like real estate agents to get off the treadmill, to get out of the hamster wheel. And where that finally, I think, hit me is that as a top performing real estate, being, top 3 probably in my city for years and years and years, at the time, I was very motivated by the reward. So at the end of the year, I would be top producer of this and top producer of that, and won this award and won that award. And I love the end of year award ceremony with my company because I love like walking out of there with 10 medals around my neck. And that went on for many years. And then finally, I don't know how many years in it happened, but I remember feeling so successful, like on December 15th when we had the award ceremony. And then on January 1, I sat here and thought, well, hell, I have to do that all over again. And I'm going to have to even up the game because everybody keeps pushing the envelope. And it's really at that moment where I realized I wasn't leveraged and I didn't have a business. I really went off of my own tenacity and my own desire to succeed and being very motivated by the rewards and hustle and all the different things that we as top producers naturally do, but realized like I couldn't just press the easy go button forever. And that's where it really opened my eyes to I need to create a machine and business out of this. And I need to focus on creating personal wealth. Like, why am I just helping people buy and sell real estate? Why am I not buying and selling my own real estate? So it's that aha of standing into January 1. And that's why coming into, we're midway through January, the time of this recording. And that's what I'm working with all my followers and my clients is like, okay, how we succeed outside of really hustle individual performance is we have to build this thing called a business. And, it can be super small business to, super big business. But at the end of the day, business is business. And to succeed at business is a different animal than just succeeding, through our hard work and personal performance.
Well, help us make the distinction. I think I know what you mean, but what is it? What do you mean when you say to have a business? Because I think most agents would say, well, like, I have a business, like I get up and sell every day, right? So help us make the distinction.
Yeah, well, first of all, one of the it's we have a business. So there's a word called business owner. And if we break that down, it means we own this thing called a business. Like we own a car, we own a house, and we have to operate the car, we have to operate the house, we have to put gas in the car, we have to maintain. When we own something, it takes we have to take care of it. That's our role. That's our job. You don't take care of a house the same way when you're renting it as when you own it, for example, for most people. So when we break it down to business owner, the idea is we want to build this thing that's separate from us that actually can perform with or without us. So meaning it's top performers, many times we go and we can make a lot of money, but there's a ceiling to that money. But really what happens other than just hitting a ceiling financial wise is we hit this place called burnout. And it means because the performance of this thing we call the business is based on our hard work. It's not we can go on vacation for a month and the thing still more or less operates without us. So it's at that point where we own something. And that's not by accident. So we have to build it in a way that it makes money without us being in there, being the one that's on the hamster wheel. And that really starts with something I call a business strategy. And at this time of year, especially for, real estate agents, it's we're very motivated by goals. And so there's that thing called that BHAG from Byron Buffini days, that big, hairy, audacious goal that, back in my Buffini days, we all, wrote that down the first of the year, but we didn't have any strategy behind it. It was just kind of pulling these numbers from the air. And as business doesn't pull number from the air, meaning, I'm just going to increase my revenue by 22%, or I'm just going to go from 20 million to 50 million. And that's my big, hairy, audacious goal. Really what business starts with, it starts with this thing called a plan. And it's very thoughtful. And what a business strategy is I like to say there's something called GPS. So versus setting goals, we want to create this thing called a GPS. And if we think of our Google map in our car, for example, it gets us from point A to point B and it sends us on a route. So the GPS of business planning starts with our goals, meaning we need these goals. But then the P is the plan, meaning what is the plan to hit the goals? And number 3, what is the system and the people that are going to make sure that that plan is fulfilled in order to hit the goals? So that's what business is at this time of year, it starts with the plan we're going to follow as the bridge. Like, what are the things that's going to be the bridge that's going to help me from getting from where I ended this year with to where I want to end next year with?
Well, I think most people too at this point, if they're like, well, you know what, I hear what Kristina's saying, and I really want to start to build systems in my business so that more things happen without my attention. And if I were to step away for a week or a month, that everything would continue to happen. And I think maybe the big why of that, and you and I have both experienced this in our history, is what if something big happens and you need to step away for a long period of time? Somebody gets sick, you get sick, somebody dies, whatever, or you won't decide that it's time for a sabbatical, whatever the reasons are. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, ideally and ultimately, we'd like to build this business as this thing that we could take a year sabbatical and the thing's going to keep running. Ideally, that's how we want to build it. Now, does it work that way realistically? As the business owners that are in there, like making the decisions and leading and holding people accountable and managing and making sure that, that all the levers are being pulled the way they need to be pulled. As the owner, typically we're still doing a good piece of that. Like we're leading the business, and that's a business role, is a leader. But so whether realistically speaking, that's ever going to happen for sure, we want to build it as if it will operate. We want to build it as if we could sell this thing. Now, and that's called an asset. So what's the difference between those that are hustlers that make a lot of income and those that are wealthy is the thought process that's different. Is that the way I teach this is that there's a difference between income and a difference between wealth. And income, which is mostly our industry, meaning we want to make a lot of income. And the great thing about real estate is we work really hard. We build a good clientele. We can make a really nice income, especially when the economy helps us like it has the last few years. But the economy changes, we get tired, we get sick. I mean, it goes to drastic income reduction right away. So, and life always happens. So, what helps us balance that out is that we want to move away from just this focus on making more money, because when we set goals, it's like, hey, I want to make more money. Who says I want to make less money? Nobody. So, but that's an income focus. The mindset shift we want to make is to move from being income focused to being asset focused. So income's important, but when the mindset is around building assets, building and buying assets, and having this thing called a portfolio, that's what wealth is. And wealth is what balances out, like, is money from assets versus our tenacity and our hard work. So that's where we want to go, is that over this time of my working career, when I'm hustling and busting ass and doing all the things, I simultaneously want to be building assets or buying assets, holding assets. And that's a mindset shift that I don't think it's talked about enough in our industry, because we're so GCI focused, more money, more money, more money, and that's going to solve all the problems. So yeah, so there's different types of assets. And that's it. When we become asset focused, our strategies change. What's most important changes, and that type of thing. So assets, when I teach assets, and we all know assets in real estate, but when the reason why I love real estate is because as a career, for example, is we can make high incomes as being successful as a real estate salesperson or team or broker, that type of thing. But we can also buy assets called real estate. So that's what we want to do, is build those assets. Now, when we're buying assets, let's say real estate, I had a goal that I wanted to buy a piece of real estate as an investment, like every two to 3 years. So I wanted to make enough money through real estate sales and brokerage that I could live is enough to spend on my lifestyle. But I also had plenty of money left over that I was putting in that investment bucket that I could buy that next piece of real estate. And that never changed. And so that kept me on this roll that I continued to buy assets and built this really nice real estate portfolio. Now, when I got sick, for example, that took me out of the real estate sales and brokerage game for almost 2 years, what fed me was I had cash flow from my my real estate assets. My business started breaking apart very quickly, but those real estate assets continued to perform. So again, the assets are what saved my ass, not my hard work and performance, because I couldn't do that. So that's point number one. So during our working career, again, be asset focused. Now, the second piece of that pertains to our business is that's what business is about. So individual performance, meeting GCI, making a lot of money, hustle really hard. Assets, the assets not part of the equation. But when we have an asset mindset, now what we're doing is we want to build this thing that we own like a piece of real estate. Do we have to manage our real estate? I manage my real estate portfolio, but I don't have to be in it every single day. Now, so with our business, we want to create this thing called an asset. And what an asset that has value in real estate in business terms is called enterprise value. In enterprise value, if we were going to sell an asset, so if we have a business, it's organized around this thing called enterprise value, and that means that based on usually my EBITDA, my earnings before taxes and interest and the different pieces, those earnings, there's some multiple of that. So if my profit basically is $1 million a year and it's a 3 to 5x, I can maybe sell that for 3 to 5 million. That's what's enterprise value, and having some multiple, that there's kind of these made up valuations that we can give our business. But if our business is just us going out to perform, and sell another house every day, there is no enterprise value. So to answer your question, we have to build this machine that works whether we're in it or not. So that even then it's got all these systems and operations and standard practices and, all these pieces of the business that I'll cover in a second if we have time. But when we build that, then if we go on vacation for a month, maybe we could bring it. If we don't have an agent on our team that can do the sales, we can bring somebody else from our company and saying, hey, I'm going to be gone for a month and I'm not going to be working with my buyers and sellers, but we can just insert that person into that place and the rest of the business can more or less operate itself, or we can operate from afar and it's going to do just fine. Maybe it's not going to perform as much as if we're in it, but all we have to do is go replace that one part, which is us. The whole business doesn't go and shut down because, we're taking the kids on, to Europe for a month or something. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Well, so I think there's two pillars that we're talking about at the same time. It's, the real estate sales business itself, and then real estate investments. And I think on your real estate sales business, my experience of 20 years of training agents is that the two biggest things, even top performers, I find have really terrible control of their data, and most of them don't have a top performing assistant, which blows my mind that, you could be doing a $500,000 or $1 million in sales and not have an A player, somebody who's just like absolutely able to run the business basically on the day to day. And a piece of that blows my mind too is how much you see agents patting themselves on the back, like, "Hey, I did X volume with no help, no assistant, whatever." Like that's a badge of honor. And I'm like, no, that's actually a huge mistake. Like even just that shift of your life experience next year compared to your life experience this year. Yes, you could do it, but it's like murder. Like it would have been your life experience with an assistant doing that volume, would have been way worth the dollars. And so anyway, tell me what you think of all that.
Yeah, right on. Is that again a different mindset? So that's where I go back to the asset mindset. So asset, again, when we think of our business as an asset, we want it to create this thing called cash flow. And we want a business ultimately to run and to make as much money with as least amount of time and effort as us as possible. Doesn't mean we're not going to put in time of effort, but the least amount as possible, because that's what an asset is. And that's the whole reason why we build and buy assets, is to create time freedom ultimately and more money without more work. So that's the mindset, which is always the first piece. So with that mindset, we go to stand to reason that why would we want to have that as a badge of honor? Because that just means we're working harder and we're not getting any time freedom back. And ultimately, we'd want to plug that assistant in to give us one and or both. One, by plugging that person, that top A player assistant in, probably going to allow us to have more time to make more money, number one. Or two, if we don't need to make more money, it's going to give us more time back, which is the whole reason of kind of being in business in the first place, but versus getting a job. So absolutely. And then usually the assistant's the first hire. And if that's your only hire and you stay there, that's great. But if you're going to grow this business, your assistant won't be your only hire. So part of but their skill there is you have to become a leader and a manager at that point versus just doing it on your own, which that's a business skill, because being a leader and manager usually isn't, you know, super easy. It can be a pain if you're not good at it. But then ultimately, it's afraid to let go. Like it's this process of letting go. So it might be spoken as a badge of honor, but usually it's just this fear of letting go of perfectionism or something, which we can't grow a business without letting go. So over time, you hire that first assistant, but every time maybe you want to grow a little bit more. It's like, hey, now I need a marketing and content manager. That will be the second hire. And oh, now I need somebody's going to help. I'm making a ton of money. Maybe I need somebody to help my books and do that. So over time, that's a big piece of business, is leadership and building your team of those that are going to be part of, that machine that we're building. So absolutely to part number one. And the second piece was data. Data is crucial. Again, when we're looking at a business and a business plan, what I teach with a business plan going into, let's say, 2024, as a business owner, like I said, we start with that goal. And let's say the goal is we want to generate, I don't know, $100,000 more of income, let's say, revenue, top line. And it's a tougher market than it's been, but I still want to make more money than I did last year. And I want to make an extra $100,000. So that's great. We know by more or less doing the same thing, probably in a similar economy, we can make the same amount of money this year as we did last year. But if we want to make $100,000 more, then what we look at is, great, we set the goal, but what do we have to do differently? What's that plan? What do we need to do differently that's going to help us hit that $100,000 more mark? Maybe it's hire an assistant. I think that I need help. Maybe it's hiring a marketing manager. I need to get more marketing out. Maybe it's I'm trying to think what else is a measurable, what I call hurdle that we need to figure out. So what I coach on is to find 3 business problems that the business needs to solve to make that extra $100,000 of revenue. And it's really not as easy as it thinks. It seems like, oh, it's only $100,000 revenue. But no, what's the plan to do that? So for me, when I'm looking at my business this year and I'm looking at, okay, I've set some pretty good growth targets, and those growth targets aren't going to happen by accident. Those growth targets aren't going to happen by doing the same thing I did last year. I'm going to have to do something different. And so it's really looking at my business. And for me, it's like, okay, one of my places of weakness is content, like to be social media content or type of content, because my stuff's very referral based and the different things. Like if I can continue a referral based business, I can stay about the same. But if I want to grow this pretty decent percent, I believe as the business owner, I need to produce a lot more content, use this content to generate a lot more leads, and then use this, I'm missing that piece. So now I have on my business strategy a YouTube strategy. Matt, I don't know anything about YouTube. I don't even go to YouTube. But when I'm looking at all the different things, I'm like, okay, YouTube now I've got this lead generation problem and this lack of content problem. I think YouTube, out of, all the different platforms and channels, this is one that can help me solve the problem. Now, part of my business plan is to learn YouTube and to start doing this. Now I've created these action steps that I had to find, who am I going to follow on YouTube? I needed to buy a program, hire a coach that's going to help me do it. I need accountability partners. So I put the YouTube accountability group together. So those that want to do this with me, we can all learn together. I've made a commitment to do 2 videos per week and just get over my perfectionism and afraid that, it's not going to beat my brand if it's not all edited like all these rock star famous YouTube people are, and just start doing it. So that's an example of, now a big part of my business is to build out this YouTube strategy, this YouTube channel in 2024. And if I'm successful at that, and that was the right business problem I need to solve, and to help me generate those 4,000 leads, boom. So that's an example of setting a target, having a plan, and now I've created the system around my calendar and these different things to help me fulfill on that plan. Now, the final piece to that is the data, like you said. But that's looking at everything as a business owner is measured by data. You need to know your data. And as many times as real estate agents, like, okay, if I'm going to generate for me, I have a gap of 4,000 leads. And so that's 333 leads a month. That's 86 leads per week. Now, everything I'm doing is I'm measuring this YouTube channel and things that I'm doing that's measuring to that, because I believe those 4,000 new leads based on my current conversion, my lead conversion ratios that I already have historically, that's going to help me hit these targets. So, but now I have to track to see if this is working. So that's, with example in real estate, it's like, hey, if we're going to set this $100,000 goal, then what am I measuring? What am I building? What am I measuring to make sure that I'm on track to do that? And it's like, okay, how many new listings do I have? How many new buyers do I have? What are my conversion ratios based on how I do that? How am I going to generate more calls? And measure, 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 measure. And then we need to measure our money. Like, hey, how's the revenue growing? How are my expenses? How are everything doing? And measuring our money as well. So to complete on that, business is all about data, because if we can't guide the ship, if we don't know if we're going in the right direction.
Yeah, knowing your numbers is so huge. And I love the way you went through that. You ripped through it really fast. So people may have to listen to it more than once to catch all of that. But, you know, figuring out what your key lead sources are and then knowing your numbers through that process is just so huge. Before we wrap it up, I want to go and talk a little bit more about investment. So as you're growing your business, you get your revenue up. Now, reinvesting some of those dollars as a real estate investor. One of the things that I've just always been shocked to see how many real estate agents are not investing in real estate. And, we know more about this particular asset than anyone. You see these deals come across your path all the time. And, I really want to challenge people listening to this who are members of Triangle MLS next year, that if you haven't bought any real estate assets, or you haven't bought any lately, to me, if you're a successful real estate agent or a broker and you're not acquiring at least one property per year, it's just absolute lunacy, because your 100 grand a year is actually right there. One asset acquired per year, and let's say you let that asset appreciate for 5 years, and you do that every year though, right? So you're basically adding your 100K a year. That's the easiest 100K you could possibly add every single year. And, back to you said earlier about mindset, I think most agents have to make this jump. If you're already a real estate investor and you're an agent or a broker, of course, then, keep rocking. But if you've just been on the hamster wheel of selling real estate and you're not buying real estate, I think it's this mindset for 2024 to go, you know what, start telling yourself, and then start telling everyone you talk to, look, I'm an active real estate investor. I am a buyer. Yeah, I'm a broker. I'm an agent. I'm doing my thing every day, but I'm actively looking for new assets right now. Start telling all the other agents that, and people will start showing you deals. And next thing you know, you're going to have the deal right in front of you that you need. Tell me what you think about how you approach that in your business.
Yeah, so I totally agree with that, and it's surprising, and it makes me sad in a way that more real estate agents are not investors. As part of the work that I do now is to really encourage real estate agents to be as serious about real estate investing as they are about their real estate business. And because there's certain wealth principles, and I teach money. I love talking about money. We're talking more about real estate and real estate business versus money and wealth that we've done in other conversations. But there's a wealth principle, and one of the wealth principles says that the wealthy have multiple streams of income. And what we mean by wealth, that means we have assets. It means that it's not just our hard work attached to our performance and our high income. So if that's a wealth principle, then part of our career then is organized around creating multiple streams of income. Our real estate business is just one stream, and that's why it's so ups and downs. That's why we feel financially insecure. It's why we have a lot of financial stress. Uh, when it's doesn't have the business components, now we can't take any time off, and it becomes tiring after a time. So what we want to do when we get out of the income game and into the wealth game, because versus the income mindset, the asset mindset, things shift. And now it is about building this portfolio, because what we want is multiple streams of income. So your one stream of income is your real estate business. And you want it to be as leveraged, meaning just leveraged through systems and good people and all the things, like have a real business where it's a performance asset. So our first asset is our business. And that's the way I teach assets. But we want to do that. And that's our first stream of income, is our business as an asset. And like I said, we want it to operate where we manage it, but we're not the business, because then we're the only asset. The business isn't the asset. But that's asset one, is throwing out that money that we live on. But then over time, we want to say, okay, what are my other 5 streams of income? And it's called MSI, multiple streams of income. And MSI is something that is part of your life plan, as business plan fits under your life plan. But that's just it. Like, hey, if the average wealthy person, which means over $1 million net worth, not including your primary residence, that bona fide net worth millionaires that have $1 million plus in assets have on average 5 streams of income, then we can start there. Like, my business is income stream number 1, and I'm going to have 4 properties in a certain amount of time to be those 5. Make that the first goal. Because in real estate, it's so easy to buy real estate. We know the numbers. It's so much harder for all these other people out there taking real estate investing courses, trying to understand real estate, when we know this stuff. We spent our entire career knowing real estate. The fact that we're not taking advantage of that knowledge is kind of crazy. So that can be the first goal, is over the next 5 years, I'm going to create 5 multiple streams of income, have these 5 assets, one being my business. So always start with the goal. GPS, what's my plan to do that? And then what systems do I need that are it's always GPS, the same thing. It can't be high concept of just like, going to have 5 properties, blah, blah, blah. And part of that planning process then is even asking the question, how much money do I need to save now annually to put into my real estate investing bucket that's going to make sure I have the money to be able to buy that real estate? Well, I need $100,000. So that means I have to go manage my money in a way that makes sure that I make enough money and I spend my money in a way that makes sure that I'm paying all my bills and that type of thing. But I'm also saving that $100,000 that's going to keep me on track for those 5 sources of income. So you can see, like, hopefully the way I'm talking about this, that there's a real method to it. It's not rocket science. But this is the process, and it's a process that's different. It's being intentional about your life. It's being intentional about your business, being intentional about your money and your wealth, be intentional about your family and your health and these other concerns. But there's no guesswork. It's not pulling stuff out of the sky. It's created with, hey, this is the end in mind. And now these are things I'm doing to produce the outcomes that I say are going to make my life better.
Yeah, that's awesome, Krisstina. And I think, if people just kick into 2024 with that in mind, so that you've got your goals for growing your sales business, but then what's going to be that next asset that you're going to acquire. So, well, Krisstina, I really appreciate you sharing with the members here at Triangle MLS. And how can everybody find you online if they want to learn more?
I guess one is, I talk about a lot of this on my own podcast, which is the Wealthy Wealthy podcast. Wealthy, Wellthy, which is the second wealthy. And then trying to think that relevant to this. If anybody wants a copy of a little business planning template that I've created, then go to wisemoneymethod.com/quiz, QUIZ. And attached that is a little business planning template. So wisemoneymethod.com/quiz. You'll get this template that will help you set up a really robust 2024.
Awesome. Krisstina, thanks so much. And guys, thanks for listening to the Triangle MLS podcast. And we'll see you back here real soon.